Are you on a path of growth of your income and portfolio where it's going to continue to expand to meet your financial goals? Or unfortunately, are you going to have to shrink your financial goals to fit in a little box? All right, now let's consider buy. Now let's consider a purchase. Okay. The issues you may see with this are, Chris, what about the issue of low inventory? Chris, what about the competition that's in the market, right? And maybe for some of you, yes, Chris, I'd like to own more real estate, but where do I get the money? Okay, so what are the antidotes to here? So let's talk about the inventory question. When it comes to inventory, if you're going to rely on an agent, a real estate agent, a broker, who does not sell multifamily properties in the area of which you would like to own, yeah, you're behind the 8 ball, because you need to work with someone that can farm inventory for you. Number 2, if you just rely on the multiple listing service, LoopNet, and you're sitting at your computer and you're hitting refresh and waiting for new properties to come up, that's not a winning strategy either. So what we implement for our clients is we do reverse prospecting, if you will. Okay, so we sell a property for a client. We know how much equity or we're in the process of selling a property for a client. We know how much equity they're going to net. We know which areas they would like to own in. We know the size of property thereabouts that they can purchase based upon that equity. We don't just wait and sit back during escrow and wait for escrow to close to then go out and find inventory, but we're proactive, reverse prospecting, and you'd be surprised how many properties we're able to identify for our clients that are not on the open market, okay, but that they're able to purchase through their 1031 exchange. Last year I had a client in a 1031 exchange that had a sizable amount of money, had to buy a building somewhere around $5 million. And so as you can imagine, as the buildings get bigger, it gets a little tougher, if you will, less inventory. We were able to find his exchange property off market, and that was through the reverse prospecting that we do here at the Apartment Dealer. Now, when it comes to competition, you're saying, well, Chris, I'm having to compete with all cash offers. My offer is not all cash. Or you feel like maybe your offer, for one reason or another, because you need a finance contingency and different things, is just not going to be the best offer in the market. Or maybe you've written offers only to get beaten out time and time again. You're frustrated, and so you've come to the conclusion that, at least right now, given the dynamics of the market, a purchase is difficult. Well, here we just need a strategic offer. Okay, I would not be in business if I could not piece together deals for my clients. And not every client that I have is a cash buyer. That would make my life a whole heck of a lot easier. But especially, I'd say in the last 3 years, there's been more individuals that have come to us in need of financing versus prior to that, a lot of cash buyers. And so there's a way to write a strategic offer when, of course, price is something that you can play with, right? But no one wants to pay exceedingly over market value. But within the purchase agreement itself, within the offer itself, there's things that you can do to make the offer appealing to that seller, whether it's dealing with the contingencies, the time frames, so forth, getting creative with, you may need financing, but is there a way to essentially close the property cash and then procure financing after the fact? These are all things that we look at as we're drafting the offer for our clients to ensure that we're able to land product and then money. Well, you're not alone. A lot of our clients, a lot of landlords, I'd say, are equity rich, cash poor. Okay, that's just the fact of the matter. Your average landlord is not, say, a doctor or a lawyer or some CEO of a Fortune 500 company where they have big injections of cash every year. They're actually more quote unquote mom and pop, okay? And so they don't have $1 million, $2 million, $3 million laying around depending on what size of a property we're looking at purchasing, but they are equity rich. Now, if we're talking about a cash out refinance, we can't just assume, well, I have equity, so I'm going to take some of that equity and buy a property. Okay, we have to look at this because keep in mind, your original property that you're going to be pulling equity out of, you're increasing the loan amount there, and you're going to have a loan on the new property. If we do an analysis, by the time you pay both mortgages, okay, what's our net income? Is that hitting the head on the nail in terms of our goal if we're looking to increase our net income or whatever the goal may be, right? Or, again, going back to 1031 exchange, is a 1031 more ideal because instead of a cash out refi where I can only carry over, say, maximum 65% of the property's value, that's how much I can get in a cash out refi, and that's assuming that you own the property free and clear. But if you already have an existing loan, and the bank is only going to lend you up to 65% of the building's current value. But first you have to pay off that first mortgage. How much is left? How much real estate can you buy with that? And does it make sense, this property you can buy, versus in a 1031 exchange where you've sold and you have 100% of the equity now to work with, more times than not, that gets you further ahead. Again, if we're looking at net income, especially net income, and of course we can buy a more sizable property, which does what? Gives us more of the appreciation, compound effect, exponential growth, all the things that we're looking for. Now let's look at sell. Okay, in terms of selling, we have a few challenges, right? Or some investors have these challenges, right? You have your current rents and you have the property condition. Property, your rents, your rental income. Remember, the value of a property is in part tied to the current income it collects, especially here in California in light of statewide rent control, right? More and more investors are concerned with, hey, what are the current rents that the property's collecting? When is the last time the rental rates were increased and by how much? And how much, based upon the current rental rates, can I raise those rents in the first year when I take over as the new owner? So rents play a key part. Property condition, same concept. Property, even if I get a vacancy, right? Somebody buying the property from you, the new investor, right? Even if they come across a vacancy in the time of their ownership, well, what's the condition of the property? How much capital improvement are they going to have to make into the property in order to get the high rents that assumably they'll need to get in order to make the price make sense for them? So again, rents and property condition. Now, as a seller, of course, we're also concerned with price, right? Maximizing price. How do I ensure that I get top dollar, okay? Especially when, for many of you, you would be selling an asset. It's your joy, your pride and joy, as they say. How do we ensure that we're getting or going to obtain top dollar in the market? How do we ensure that we get the highest price the market will bear? And really at the end of this scenario, right, you would be hiring us to essentially have the buyer upside down, hold him by his ankles and shake out every last nickel, right, to get you the highest price. That's the idea here. Now, once we get past the sale and the price, well then, okay, well, Chris, now what am I going to do about the taxes and or what do I do about my exchange inventory, the new property that I'm going to buy? Back here we said, hey, there might be an issue with inventory. How do we address the issue with finding you the right property? Now, for rents and property condition, right? So this goes back to substantial improvements. We have plenty of videos that address this, but the point is, you run an analysis. Here's what my current rent is. And if you own in a city, that allows it. Most do. There's only a few cities that do not allow you to vacate units for substantial improvement. But if you were to vacate the tenant, how much could you obtain in market rent? What would be the new rate if you were to revamp the unit? Whatever that differential is, whatever that amount is between your current rent and market rent, and ideally above market rent if you do a good job on the remodel, does that substantiate doing the substantial improvement? Now, you may find that, well, no, there's a little bit of a differential, but in order to recoup that, I'd have to hold on to the property for eons, right? And so that probably doesn't address that here. So the rents are what the rents are and the property condition is what the property condition is. In terms of price, when a property is being marketed for sale, we want to think about three things. It's got to be visible locally, socially, and on video. Now, what do I mean? Okay, locally, in the marketing of your property, of course, selling investment property 101, multiple listing service, postcards, these type of things, right? This is a given in terms of making the investors in your area aware that your property is for sale. But more and more investors are only on social media, right? That's the social part of this. So the property has to be marketed on the different social media channels that are out there. Now, you may not yourself be scrolling Instagram and Facebook, and you may feel like, well, you're not really finding properties there yourself, so who really is? You'd be surprised. Even myself, even though I have an Instagram channel, a Facebook, and so forth, I use this primarily for business, but in my personal life, I do not spend a lot of time on social media. Given the size of my family and so forth, my time is occupied. But there is a great number, I should say, of investors, individuals that would like to own multifamily property that are on social media. Anytime we list a property for our clients for sale, we're marketing it, we get several thousand views just from the social media marketing. And then video. More and more, as you know, hence why we're shooting this video here today, people want to be touched through video. Right? Maybe they're scrolling on Instagram, they're scrolling on Facebook. They have the sound off, so they can't hear any of the sound, if you will. But they're watching the video, they're looking for captions, and so a property, and this assumes that it would work to the property's advantage. Now, sometimes the property might have flaws that you really don't want to shoot video, but assuming, again, this is a good-looking property, we want to have video of that property, especially push that out through social. That's going to ensure what? That anyone that has the money to purchase knows your property is for sale. Okay, so we've taken care of the exposure question. Now, taxes. Well, yeah, Uncle Sam would like capital gains tax, right? That's would be a big windfall of money for the government in terms of the amount of equity that's sitting in commercial properties today. So when we address the tax question, or the tax issue, the question is, if we could mitigate those taxes, if we could put those aside for a second, what would be your next concern? Are you looking for a situation where you still need monthly income, or you still would like monthly income? Are you looking for a situation where you could receive monthly income, pay little to no capital gains tax, and have no management responsibility? Well, then, of course, there are strategies to sell your investment property and either do a 1031 exchange into something like a DST, where we have a video recorded that shares the ins and outs of that. Maybe not a DST, but buy a triple net property where you're the sole owner. Maybe exchange into a different type of asset class that is not as management intensive as multifamily, because it goes without saying multifamily probably is the most management intensive type of investment real estate. Or maybe you sell and you provide, you do a seller finance sale and you provide private financing for the end buyer. These are all various strategies, which again takes a what? Takes an analysis. I'll keep coming back to that to see which is most practical for you and which really gets you to your end goal. And then the exchange question, the exchange, the inventory and so forth. Usually when someone has this concern, it sounds something like this. Chris, the government only gives you 45 days to find your new property. How in the world, when you've already discussed certain issues with inventory, how could you find the next property in 45 days? I don't want to be pushed into a corner, forced to just buy whatever to satisfy the government requirement, and then I'm unhappy with the end product. Well, you said it yourself. You've only given yourself 45 days. A 1031 exchange, the entire process, they give you 180 days, okay? From the day you close escrow, you have 180 days to close escrow on the new property. But of that 180 days, don't ask me why, but this is the way it is, the first 45 days you must identify up to 3 properties that you potentially may buy. You're saying, hey, I like property A, B, and C. Right now we're just dating. I'm not sure which one I'm going to marry, if you will. Okay. Now you actually can identify more properties than that. That gets into some other exchange rules. But for most of you watching, you're probably going to stick to the 3 property rule. Now, I have a video that I recorded with Gray Burns of IPX, the nation's largest 1031 exchange company. We'll put a link here. We dive into all the questions surrounding a 1031 exchange, and so I'll save some time here. But what I want to say is this. All you need, this question can be answered by just having more time. You just need more time. And you say, well, Chris, you just said, the government said it's only X, Y. Yeah. From the close of escrow date, there's a way back when you're negotiating with your buyer, the person buying your building, where we're able to fluctuate the close date so we don't start that 1031 exchange clock, start it ticking, right? But we're able to postpone it to give you more shop time. We do this all the time for our clients, where instead of essentially only having that 180 days of shop time, so we can build it out where now nearly they have 9, 10, 11 months of shop time, and that's what we help our clients strategize on, and it all depends on what best suits their needs. But my point here is that it's addressed by time. The inventory question in an exchange is addressed by time. That is your goal tool. So now, it's 2022. You have goals. You have a financial legacy to build in multifamily properties. What is step 1? Now, step 1 for you might be a family meeting. Hey, you've heard some new ideas on the Apartment Dealer Show. Here's some things to consider. Step 1 might be taking a look at your personal finances. If you're truthful with yourself, if you stay on the trajectory you're on, will you ideally be where you want to financially down the road, right? Are you on a path of growth of your income and portfolio where it's going to continue to expand to meet your financial goals? Or unfortunately, are you going to have to shrink your financial goals to fit in a little box because you'd rather play it safe? Again, I understand for some people holding makes sense. But for those of you that have plans and goals for growth, like myself, ideally, I'm 42. I'm going to be 42 this year. That sounds strange, right? I have plans and goals of a certain retirement date, but I also have plans and goals of, I have 8 kids that I have to put through college. There's things that I want to do. I already know how many units I have to own, assuming a certain rate of return, and how much money on my part it's going to take to buy that number of units. And within that, how many exchanges will I have to complete? Because obviously I can't buy it all cash. I'm going to have to reinvest the equity of properties that I currently own that have grown. I have it built out, and it may not go as planned, but the point is I have a plan. At least without a plan, I'm not shooting in the dark. Step 1, what I think, again, what's your goal here? Cash flow, appreciation, tax savings, maybe all 3. How do you reach your ideal? If you have any questions, please reach out to my office. We're more than happy to help, especially if you own here within LA County, San Bernardino County, Riverside County, Orange County. We probably can be more of assistance. If you own outside of that, we might be able to share some ideas, but may not be able to specifically strategize because that would be outside our service area. Not to say we couldn't find somebody who could assist you in those those areas. If any of this made sense to you today, give the video a like. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a lot more content, as I mentioned, that's planned for you. On our next video, we're actually going to go through all the market data, especially if you own it in Los Angeles and San Bernardino County. I'm going to break down for you what are the current rental rates, what are the current cap rates, what are the current property values, what are the current trends. We have a lot of data that we'll be sharing with you, and maybe that'll give you more of a firm footing. If you still feel a little anxious about making any moves in this year, given all the concerns we know that are out there, okay? And I wish you good health at this time. I hope you and your family are well and doing well. But we're going to go through the market data. So at that point, I hope that you'll feel like you're standing on firm ground to make some real decisions for this year. Chris German from The Apartment Dealer, wishing you positive cash flow, tenants who behave, and much protection from Uncle Sam. Till next time.